Hello and welcome to Bird Barrier Pro Lab Studio. My name is Michael Gallion. I do business development for Bird Barrier. And today we're going to give you some basics on bird control cleanup. I know that some of you are driving while you're listening to these. We, of course, have much more detailed videos and instructionals for bird control cleanup that you want to check out on our YouTube channel, Bird Barrier on YouTube. And we actually have not only that video, but several more about segmented portions of bird control operations like lift and ladder safety, for example. But today, I wanted to touch on some basics of bird control cleanup that a lot of people don't know, especially if you're from the outside world beyond pest control, you're a facility manager, and you are new to this world of bird control. You've hit your first real major bird problem. Maybe pigeons are infesting one of your facilities, and you're cleaning up on a regular basis, but probably not properly. And of course, you're probably not dealing with solving the problem. You're just going in and doing a regular cleanup. But at some point, you're going to want to get rid of the birds and then do a proper permanent cleanup. And cleanup can actually be a big part of solving the problem. At the very least, by cleaning up, getting rid of nests of birds that are invasive species, that is a harassment, to the bird. It's legal. You don't have to worry about it if it's not a protected bird like pigeons or sparrows or starlings. Those birds are not protected by the Migratory Bird Act, so we can actually remove the nest, and you can interfere with their reproductive cycle, and that can in and of itself be a pretty effective tool. But birds have a very powerful reclaiming biology. What I mean by that is if you take that nest down and the birds have been there for any amount of time, especially if the birds have already reproduced successfully for maybe a few years, then not only the parent birds of that nest, but their offspring are going to always want to reclaim that spot because it's been imprinted. And that's one of the first things that you need to realize. If you're dealing with a bird infestation, just keep in mind that water and some of the soap solutions that come with power wash are not a match at all for the power of pheromone imprint draw for that bird to come back. Anyone who's owned a cat or a dog that continues to urinate in the same spot on the sofa, this is what we're talking about. This is pheromone draw. The birds have that same mechanism, and they also have a powerful fixation in terms of where that particular spot is for their safety and reproduction in the future. So some of the basics you need to learn about the cleanup, and when we're just going to stay focused at ground level right now at the beginning here and assume that you're not doing anything about the nesting going on up above, and you're just trying to clean up the matter. Most important thing I'm going to tell you here is that not only do you need to wear HEPA filter quality, you need to have breathing protection and cover your mouth and your nose properly and have a good tight seal. You also have to protect your eyes. The debris that comes loose from dry bird droppings is dangerous. It's most dangerous to the person who's doing the disruption of the bird droppings. I use the comparison to asbestos. A lot of people will own a house for many years with asbestos insulation around pipes and that sort of thing in the basements of houses in the Midwest and back east. These houses are very old, and the rule of thumb is as long as you don't disturb it, it's generally safe. It's not going to be a problem. It's when you start to tear things apart. So whenever there's a remodel and you start kicking that stuff up, well, you got a serious hazmat situation. Bird droppings are hazmat. They're hazardous materials. So if you're just going to be scraping up droppings from the ground and loose matter, make sure you wear proper breathing and eye protection, wear proper gloves. There's a lot of biological components that can get into your bloodstream. There are over 60 known disease vectors. That's twice as many as rodents. So a lot of people are scared of rat droppings, and they know that you can get different hantavirus and different components from rats. Well, there's a lot more involved in the bird droppings, and they can really get to you and cause a lot of breathing problems in your lungs, your eyes, and your bloodstream. So make sure you wear proper PPE, that's personal protective equipment, if you're going to be scraping up droppings. That's even if you are wetting them. Of course, that's the first thing you want to do with any cleanup, is you want to wet things down so that it doesn't become airborne as easily anyway. And it also helps soften the droppings and make them come up easier. So if you're just power washing those away, you know, that runoff does contain some components you want to be very careful with as well, where you're cleaning everything really thoroughly. But once you've gone up and removed a nest and you want to prevent the bird from coming back, this is where special chemicals come involved. Now, these chemicals that we want to use, there's two main components, one of which is this one right here next to me. This is called Dissolve It. Now, Dissolve It, what makes this special is it's designed just for bird droppings. And what makes it special just for bird droppings is there's an active enzyme in here, and it actually eats at the components of the bird dropping to neutralize those droppings and render the pheromone imprint to be neutralized. Not only on the surface, but when we spray it and it goes down in all the crevices, and especially on stucco and surfaces that are porous, the Dissolve It will soak in to those areas. We want to let it soak for about 20 minutes before we do anything. That way it's penetrating in the same manner that bird droppings penetrate. Bird droppings contain both urine-related waste as well as solid matter combined, and that's the difference. The birds have this combination, and there's uric acid that's very, very corrosive, that is part of the damage that we see from bird control. Dissolve It is specially designed to attack that, and it's one of the best things to use because it speeds up the whole process. So once we've removed any loose matter like the nest, the eggs from a pigeon, feathers, all that material, we get it out of the way, then we want to spray Dissolve It, soak that area, let it soak for about 20 minutes, and then you're going to scrub and remove using scrub brushes or whatever it takes to remove. Now, power wash equipment works very well at this stage to get rid of any of the remaining biology, but it's really important to remove all that biology. If we clean the area thoroughly, but surrounding the nesting area are still feathers and droppings, then you haven't solved the problem. You haven't broken that spell and what we call resetting the nesting site. You want to reset it completely to neutralize it by using Dissolve It. After that, we rinse it thoroughly with just plain water. We want to hit it with pressure if we can, but otherwise we rinse everything down thoroughly, and then as it's still damp and it's starting to dry, we then come in with a ratio of about 30% bleach and 70% water, and we do a light coating of bleach water, diluted bleach water, and we mist it over the surface and then let that completely dry. At that point, you can remove your PPE and safely be able to install deterrents, or whatever you're going to use to keep birds from coming back into that area. All of the areas of cleanup need to be cleaned properly so that we can reset that so that birds are not as easy to come back in. Sometimes when we do this cleanup only to the nesting site, we get lucky, and about 10% of the time the bird won't come back. You've done enough to it to disrupt them, and if you do it again and again, eventually the bird may give up, but if offspring are in the area, then you're going to have a continuing problem that you want to solve in the same way for each one of those nesting areas. Now, one other part of cleanup sometimes involves a lot of droppings, meaning bags, trash bags full of droppings. Where you dispose of all these droppings depends on your state. So you have to check with your local city and call the city, the city hall, and ask them about hazmat bird droppings, where they can be disposed of. Usually each city will have a place for this sort of thing. In many states, you can just put them into a dumpster, but there is a special procedure that has to be followed. So, of course, when you get to the site and you have your PPE on and you see a lot of loose droppings, you may not want to wet that down first, because there's so much volume that all you're going to do is make a lot more heavy droppings that are going to be a lot harder to carry to the dumpster. So while they're dry and they can be shoveled up, they can be put into trash bags, and you tie that bag tightly, and then we place it into one more trash bag and tie the top. We don't put a twisty on the top, but we tie a knot in both of those bags, and then we can put it in the dumpster. But again, check with your local authorities if that is approved. Once that is disposed of properly, it's really critical that every biological component in that site is removed and gotten rid of from anywhere near the bird problem area. Another part of cleanup that comes up is woodpecker cleanup, where birds are doing what is called food storage, right? They'll peck holes in the walls and store acorns. A big mistake we see with cleanup of those sites, not only not doing the pheromone imprint, but you'll see a tech come up and just pull the acorns out, drop them onto the ground right next to the building. And basically, you're inviting that bird to come back and start the whole process all over again. All those acorns are gold to the birds. You want to make sure, if you're pulling out any food harborage for the birds, that you get rid of those as well. Don't throw them on the ground, and don't throw nesting material, anything in the vicinity of where the infestation is. We want to get rid of everything. We want to reset that site properly using a chemical like Dissolve It to reset the area. And then bleach. Diluted bleach is often approved. It's approved for outdoor eating areas on the tabletops, and just the residue of the bleach, bleach water as it dries, that in and of itself is a pretty good bird deterrent. They don't like the smell of it. They will fly away from those areas when strong bleach mixture is used that they can smell. So those are the basics of bird control cleanup. I hope you found this helpful. If you have more questions or you want to order some of the Dissolve It, you get a hold of us. We're available. Our contact information is here below. If you have any other suggestions for additional podcasts, don't hesitate to put it in the comments. We look at it all the time. We look at comments. We take everything very seriously. We look at surveys after exams and get the feedback from those of you out there who need help solving bird control problems. Again, my name is Michael Gallion. I do business development for Bird Barrier, and we will see you at the next podcast.